no matter which scenario that you think that Pauline, how she got osteomyelitis, even if it were an accident, why was it not carefully taken care of? And if it was, and still an infection happened, I still don't understand how you have a child who has this major medical issue, that you have this major medical issue and she doesn't know how it happened. No one ever told her. No one ever mentions it. We just know that she got it. And I just personally think, in my opinion, that with all the details and everything that critics and authors like Peter Graham has said, if you are giving me this narrative that this person is an evil, horrible person, and you tell me that she said specific things that, you know, she's laughing in the jail cell or she's laughing it up in the trial. And when I read this stuff, how am I supposed to have faith that any of that happened without proof, without a written testimony by someone? So I'm taking all of these details that I have and how people behaved, and the only conclusion I can come up with is that there was definitely ignoring a child because, for whatever reason, you think that she's annoying. You think that she complains too much, and you find your own daughter obnoxious. Well, if that's true, that's your fault. And yes, I am not blaming Honora and saying you caused your own death, but she is responsible for the actions of how it happened. And because we don't know much about that, like Honora was never diagnosed or went to the doctor for anything, but neither did Pauline outside of her leg. During the trial, the psychiatrist, Dr. Medlicott, who's as much as full of shit as Peter Graham, and it's shocking because this doctor is a prominent name in like British psychiatry, but he's also has, like, I don't believe him either, because he talks about this case for over 30 years and diagnoses them over and over again, like if a new mental illness or a mental health situation, and he thinks, oh, that matches more to what they have. And decades go by. You can't diagnose from afar. And for much of the discussions that he had with them, a lot of it was them either not talking or being fresh. And especially for young girls and teenagers at the time, you didn't talk back. And so there's this phenomenon of people thinking that women who talk back are evil. And this is what this narrative keeps pushing, that we have strong-willed females who tell people what's on their minds and what they like and what they don't like. And they are sassy and a little bit rude, so they're evil. And this is a theme over and over again. Well, they're teenagers. What do you expect? I'm sorry. Have you ever walked past a small number, like 5 or 6, what is it called? A gaggle of teenagers? Like, and we were all one. So, you know, when you were in your own gaggle and an adult would walk by, sometimes you said something snarky. That's normal. But back then, teenagers was a whole new thing. And they're like, oh God, juvenile delinquents, pamphlets handed out by governments to warn you about how teenagers are. They're so scary. They drive cars and they wear pompadours. I mean, like, so they're giving these people this illusion that they're some like wild bandits with leather jackets and poodle skirts running around town and causing trouble. But we now know that that's just what teenagers do, and this is normalized behavior. And this was like the first time that kids were actually given time to be kids. So Pauline and Juliet are in this time frame. So they're also both straight A students. They're straight A students. They can't do much as far as physical activities, and they want to do things. And their love of poetry and the writing of sword fights, that they're all these bits of information are just smushed together. And this is the profile of these two girls that we are now given. It's just all ridiculous. And it's all making us not look in the correct direction. We're told, look at this over here. Loudmouth, evil teenagers. And oh my God, they might totally even be lesbians. So let's throw that in. And everyone's too busy looking at all this information over here. Oh God, so scandalous. And they're ignoring the obvious, that there's a child who has been the crap beaten out of her. She's been beaten. She's been belittled. She's been embarrassed. And her feelings are valid. And her personality is strong-willed, which is what she actually said about Juliet. She said, I found someone just as strong-willed as I am, which thrilled Honora and Herbert. They were thrilled. Finally, Pauline met a friend. She can finally get the hell out of Honora's hair. Like, that's what she liked. And Honora and Herbert and Juliet's parents, Hilda and Henry, they were friends. They were all friendly. There was nothing said between them to each other. Hilda never said anything that they were of a lower class, and they never said anything about her being an upper class, but classes mattered back then. We see it now that wealthier people obviously get different treatment than people who don't make as much money. And a lot of times people were focused on this in this case, but in my opinion, it has no bearing because Pauline and Juliet never mentioned anything. Anne has never said, and of course Pauline would want to come over to my house. It was nicer. It was bigger. We had the freedom to run around in the gardens. None of that was said. So you're being fed information that these are elitist, snobby people who suckered this lower class girl into their life, and it influenced her to speak British English and to drink tea properly. Like, I don't know this big influence that they're saying that Pauline got from the Hulmes. It's just another piece of a puzzle that slides into place for me, that all of this distraction, like the media plays a huge part in this. It's because of the media that we have this version, this false version of this story, of this crime that has been continuous for 7 decades. The story is two crazy lesbian killers were furious that somebody told them no and got in their way. Therefore, they murdered her because they wanted to be together. And nothing else mattered. And that is not even remotely accurate. Yes, they wanted to be together. This was, in my opinion, to Pauline, the last straw. This tension between her and her mother has been building up for years. And it's been worse as the crime gets closer and closer. We see in her diaries that she is sad, she's depressed, she is thinking about taking her own life many times. And then there are a few entries where she says this self-deprecating things. And then on the last one, before she starts planning this, her fury just takes over. And she realizes, why am I so self-deprecating? Why do I want to take my life away when the pain I've been suffering is coming from these people or this person? And there were different ways that Pauline did try to, I think, back out of it. I think she had a lot of back and forth, and I think just her fury got more and more explosive. And her feelings towards this, which I'll discuss in another episode just about the girls and their mothers, I think she just saw red, and I think she was done. And this is very common when we see, unfortunately, children who take their parents' lives in this way. I'm not excusing their behavior. I'm not saying that this was right. But you can't blame a kid who's been talked down to and abused for the majority of their life, have an injury that they don't remember getting. She's missing years. She doesn't remember. How do you not have memories? From, I understand 4, you're starting to get your memories, but like 4 to 8, she doesn't have any memories. Why? Why doesn't her father tell people what happened to his daughter? Why didn't her mother ever talk about it? How come we don't know how she got this leg injury that almost took her life twice? And this was one of the pivotal moments where I'm gathering all this information, where my own anger kind of explodes. And I am just faced with a very hard scenario to really try and, I mean, it's something that you have to think through because it's huge and it's something big that you're saying that these people are doing this horrible thing to their child. That's a big accusation. But when I have receipts and I have proof and adding that with the era and how people acted and how society was framed, I can't help but conclude that this child was treated horribly by her family, by her parents. And I think she is afraid. And I think now she has been afraid all her life, as Anne was. They never got into relationships. There were rumors, but neither of them got into relationships, whether it was with a man or a woman, because they're probably scared that they're going to do something. Like they don't trust themselves, or they were so hurt. The only thing they wanted was to be loved. And so they found each other. I am not going to stop telling this truth as long as people think that this is what really happened. And for people spreading bullshit like you, Peter Graham, and you omitting facts on purpose so that you can help spread these vile lies against 2 children who were abused. Why don't you tell people how Pauline was raped repeatedly at the age of 14? No, you won't, because you make it seem like she's this crazy, emotional kid who has no care in the world except for herself, which is so untrue. And you say that about Anne. She risked her life to help a friend. It was a shitty situation and a decision. And they went to prison. They said, I am responsible and I'm sorry. I mean, what else do you want? What else did you want from her? Anne would go and talk to so many people. This is what happened. Do you want her to repeat the same thing over and over again? How many interviews does this woman have to have and explain what happened in her life for you to believe her? You're not going to believe her. Even if she said, I'm so sorry this happened. It was the worst thing and I didn't mean to and I didn't want to, blah, blah, blah. No, she says repeatedly, I felt I owed Pauline a debt because Pauline was there when her parents were not. These kids were abandoned by their parents. Like I said, Anne's mom and dad get a little, no, I don't either, Alexa. Her parents get a little reprieve because they made up for it later on, a little bit. But in reality, this is what these girls had to go through. This is the story that is being told now about how horrible they are. And when I go onto other people's content and I read all these things that people say about, especially about Anne, I'm like, guys, this is not true. I've had larger creators delete my comments or hide them. I've tried to tell people that unfortunately this is not correct, that these children were, abused and used, and that what you see is not the reality. And I feel like, even though I feel like I'm battling uphill to try to show everyone the real situation, every time somebody watches my stuff and they see the inconsistencies in the narrative that we have now, and they can see, oh, well, wait a minute, maybe this isn't exactly what I thought. That means so much to me, because that means that you see it too, that you see what we have now. And then we backtrack and we go and we look at the evidence and we see, well, wait a minute, this doesn't line up exactly the way things were said or the way things were supposed to be. That means everything. And even if it's one person or two people, they understand that there's something more to this. And it deserves to be corrected with the proper facts. And I'm not going to accept anything else. Because when we allow people like Peter Graham to rewrite our personal stories and fill them with lies and disgusting terms to describe people with mental illnesses or physical ailments, you just lost all credibility with me, bud. And I got halfway through that book before I had to put it down for months because I was so disgusted with how Peter Graham rewrote this story. That's why I'm fighting so hard. And that's why I'm sobbing into my microphone and wiping my boogers all over this napkin right here. Because it matters. It's important. It's also important for me to wipe my nose and get clean and go pick my kids up. Thank you for being here. I apologize again for my ranting, but it really matters. And it's important. Would you want your history to be retold by someone and realize that it's all completely untrue and that the only truths are this murder happened and there's names attached to it? And it happened in New Zealand. Those are the facts that I see. But all those little conversations, those didn't. And we're going to learn more about that when I do my book report episode on the Parker and Hume book versus Peter Graham's book. And we're going to really look into it because his book is ridiculous. It really is. Again, thank you so much. If you just started watching, thank you for coming. Please go look at the playlist for all the other episodes. I try to give a little synopsis in every episode so that you kind of get the gist if it's your first one. But I have about 9 or 10 others that if you want to take a look at, that would be awesome. If you could subscribe, share, all of that stuff helps. Seriously, it really does. And thank you if you've lasted until now. Thank you. And again, this is really important to me. And I'm glad that you guys are here and listening. So have a good one. And I will see you next time. And as always, stay wrathful.